Today for our daily Moravian text reading, we are in 1 Corinthians 14 verse 36 through to chapter 15 verse 2. And the whole of 1 Corinthians 14, 13, 12, it's all about how we worship, how we gather together, how we contribute when we gather together, how we use our spiritual gifts. That the question of how is so important. I was chatting to a church leader friend just this morning, and we were talking about how so often we can have the right idea, the right calling, the right gifting, but how we work it out can have such a positive or negative effect on others. And that's what we see here. Paul is saying that how do we use our gifts? We use it for the benefit of others. We use it for the body. We use it for building one another up. We use it in the way of love. Our giftedness is not primarily about this modern self-actualization idea of personal development and personal fulfillment. We will get blessed, we will get developed, we will be fulfilled as we use our gifts, but as we use them to bless others, we are blessed in the wake of that. And today we've got a really helpful summary from Paul, verse 40, as he moves into chapter 15. He says everything should be done in a fitting way, in an orderly way, a way that he is defining and shaping as the spiritual apostolic leader of that community. That is really helpful because when we go back to that tricky verse from yesterday about Paul saying women should remain silent in the churches, this is not about whether a woman speaks or contributes or not. It's about a fitting and appropriate way for women to contribute within the culture and context of the day. So we know that Paul can't just be saying women do not speak. He can't be saying that because he's already said when you gather and when a woman prays or prophesies, i.e. speaks, she should have a covering over her head. He's already addressed female leaders that are part of the church in Corinth who will action their leadership through their speaking. So really, when we look at this and say what's happening, we're talking about a group of believers gathering together, and as the word is being preached, the women were asking their husbands, what does it mean by this? What does it mean by that? It was about a lack of equality of education and access to the preach and the teaching. And Paul's saying, look, just do that at home. Don't let it interrupt the flow of the Spirit in our gatherings. That's how I interpret it. That's what I believe it's saying. And so we've got this helpful summary, and then actually as we move into chapter 15, I just think it flows brilliantly from talking about how we do stuff to this helpful, I suppose, this process of how we do theology. Not all theology is equal. Not all theology lines up alongside each other as equal doctrinal principles. I think there's primary theology and secondary theology. And what Paul does is he says, look, there's all this stuff that we can be in disagreement about how we do stuff. Let's chunk up to the highest level. It's about the gospel. That is the thing that we all agree on. It's a brilliant leadership principle. When I used to be in education, in teaching, when I was in conflict with someone about how to do something, I would chunk up. I'd say, look, we are all here for the kids. We all want the best for these kids. And everyone would be like, yes, we agree. We managed to find agreement at that highest level. That's what Paul's doing here. He's saying, let's come back to the primacy of the gospel that unifies us. Remember, this was a church full of division and cliques. This is what unifies us. And Paul says, hold firmly to this gospel. Hold firmly to the teaching that I've passed on to you. And what do I read from that? I read that it's possible to not hold firmly to the gospel, to lose a grip of the gospel, to lose our hold of the gospel. I think that has a number of serious implications for us. Number one, When we don't hold firmly to the gospel, we swing into religiosity, into striving, into self-help, into the Bible as a list of rules and regulations to perform and achieve, rather than the gospel of grace by which we were saved. So hold on to the gospel. I think the other way that we can possibly drift when we lose hold of the gospel is when we become this sort of vague, nice bunch of do-gooders who just do nice things in the community. We lose our distinctiveness. The gospel is a message for the salvation of sinners, of which we all were before we heard it and responded by grace to become saints. And if we do that, if we just swerve towards this nice, vague religiosity of doing good deeds and preaching the gospel only through our actions, we ignore the biggest need for a person. The biggest need is not that a person is hungry or homeless. The biggest need is that we were dead. We were spiritually dead, and Jesus raises dead people to new life. And that's what we're going to go on and discover in the rest of chapter 15. Have a wonderful day.